folks have got some stories. I got a story for you. Keep it personal. I was ninth grade, about 15, and I was in the journalism program at our school, and our school newspaper was awarded some special recognition through the whole city for our fantastic reporting and articles, whatever we've done. And the school district, in conjunction with the local newspaper, put on this awards banquet. And some of us from our team got to go to this banquet and represent our school. Big deal. Big deal. First time I had ever gone to anything this fancy, anything this important, and especially just with my peers and not anybody from my family. So we got all the instructions about which fork to use and how to sit and put your napkin in your lap and dress up nice and all this kind of thing. And there we were. And our school got assigned to the table right up front next to the head table. And there at the head table was the superintendent of the schools and the president of the newspaper and his wife. Right up there, special, boy, it was a big deal. So we're right down front, in front of everybody. And our teacher was there, and it was just a bunch of us kids at the table. So, you know, a little bit of nerves. They come, they bring the food. And we got the plate that had the banquet chicken on it, and it had the whole baked potato, and had this nice big dollop of sour cream and little chives and whatever. So here we are with our right fork, trying to cut open this potato. Alas, the potato was a little underdone. Okay, it was like a rock. And I'm trying to hold it with a fork in this little round object and trying to slice into it with my knife ever so carefully. And next thing I know, whoops! Like a missile, like a little torpedo up the side of the bow of a boat, this baked potato went flying into the head table. Sour cream comes dripping down the tablecloth, and the little potatoes has rolled underneath the feet, presumably, of the president of the newspaper company and his wife. We don't know exactly where it has landed, but I and my friends had witnessed this situation, and we were absolutely mortified. Okay, well, we're mortified, and then the kids next to us are starting to titter, they're starting to laugh, and then our teacher, of course, is, what happened? What's going on? And it kind of got a little bit out of control. I was in the center of that one, and I can still feel the tension and the embarrassment and the fear that this is going to ruin my life and my school's life. But I can still feel that all these years later. Alas. But sometimes these dinner interruptions are not just a situation where, okay, not such a good manners, whatever. It's an accident, it could have happened to anybody. Okay, sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes the disruption comes on purpose. Another name for today's gospel might be, Jesus ruins another dinner. This whole thing about Jesus coming and dining in someone else's home and then proceeding to insult the host and the host's other guests and the rest of them, just basically everybody in the room, right? Doesn't sound like the great hero Jesus that we want to emulate, does it? He really opened up on this one. This is not the only. There are 4 incidents like this that are recorded in Scripture. Most of them are in the book of Luke. And this is not the only time he does this, but this one, he really does not mince any words. He has every intention of making people lose their appetite, of getting them all in knots, and disrupting this meal. Now, accept Jesus. First of all, just as way of background, our customs in America and those of us who descend from people in England, even more so, are really a little different when it comes to your behavior at table, the way that you talk back and forth to people, and the tolerance or intolerance we may have for people saying kind of insulting things to you. It was certainly more acceptable for men, particularly, to kind of back and forth and kind of talk trash like this, that perhaps we feel like it is in our society here. But that being said, Jesus had every intention of being insulting and of stirring things up. This was not a friendly sort of thing. And if we were to read the last verse of this chapter, which was not printed in your bulletin, which was not part of this, I will read it for you right now, just to make very clear that this was not something that ended in kumbaya at the end of the meal, okay? After the meal, whatever was left of it, whatever anybody finally digested, when Jesus went outside, the scribes and the Pharisees began to be very hostile toward him and to cross-examine him about many things, lying in wait for him to catch him in something he might say. So this is not just a little isolated incident. This is a dangerous thing. And what was it that ended up happening? We know, as we see all these crosses, as we participate in the season of Lent, we know that Jesus didn't do himself any favors as far as trying to avoid arrest and crucifixion by acting this way. He did. But Jesus says some pretty tough things to these folks who were the leaders of the religious community. And he's part of them. When he talks to the Pharisees, they're all part of the same basic community, the Jewish community. This is not like he's a complete outsider. And he's already torn up one dinner a few chapters ahead of this. They invite him back, so, like I said, they're kind of interested in the sparring and everything, but he really goes after, first the Pharisees, about this whole cleanliness thing. And this is not about spreading disease, right? This is about making a sacrifice, making the due respect that God has commanded when it comes to basic things like eating and drinking. And these guys were kind of really taking it to the limit. And Jesus says, what? You're so concerned about what's on the outside. Why are you not concerned about what's on the inside? You can wash any dish as clean as you want, but you can still fill it with whatever kind of filth that you want. Does that make this filth clean by washing the outside of the dish? Absolutely not. And so he's right from the walk in the door, the very first ceremony, he is on them about this kind of, you're saying one thing, you're doing something else. You're saying one thing, you're doing something else. What is it that's really important in our daily life? And what is really holy? So he's going on that one. And then the sacrifice now really comes around to the way they act in the marketplace, the way they act in the leadership, and what it means to, in this case, give tithes. And he says, you tithe mint and rue and herbs of all kinds, and neglect justice and the love of God. Now, mint and rue and herbs of all kinds, are these the kind of things that everyday normal people, your average person in the pew, brings for their gifts to God, their sacrifice? No, this is upscale, marketplace. This is fancy stuff. Not the kind of thing that other people. Do you think God's more impressed with those kinds of gifts than a turtle dove or the bit of grain that is from the harvest of a poor person? No. But these guys are so busy outdoing each other with, I can bring this into the temple, I can bring this to the temple. And what does Jesus say? What's being neglected? Justice. Justice is being neglected. That's a huge thing, and it's all about rich and poor. It's all about power and powerless. And he just brings it right on back to say, la-di-da, la-di-da. And what about the people that you're stepping on? What about the people that you were taking advantage of? What about the people that you were too busy to even notice that they have needs because of your prancing around, because of your ears, whatever? So he's going for it. He's going for it. He has lost his appetite for a civil meal, to sit down and be polite and go through the motions. His appetite for that kind of fake way of being with other people, he's lost his appetite for it. And now he is converting that energy into a different kind of hunger. He's turning it into a hunger for justice, a hunger for real holiness, true, authentic holiness. That hunger is just completely flipping around. And so it leads to more insults. Other people are trying to remind him, this isn't really a very polite way to talk. This is a dinner table. We got people, we got guests. And now you're insulting these people. I mean, this is, tamp it down, please, Jesus, come on. And what does he do? He goes right back at it with the rest of them. And he says, you load people with burdens hard to bear, and you yourselves do not lift a finger to ease them. You load people with burdens too hard to bear. Wow. I have another story of another incident that I was personally involved with at a place of eating. I'll share that with you. I was a little bit older. I wasn't a teenager anymore. I was a little bit older, a little bit wiser. You can judge. Anybody can judge how wise I was. But let's say I was living in another state, not here, and I was invited by our senior pastor to attend the holiday Christmas open house for some very special, I don't want to say special, long-time genteel members of our congregation. And he suggested that I should come along, that this would be part of it. Afternoon affair, come in, meet people, all this, and by the way, the governor might be there. Okay, so I went, and lovely food. Again, it was all, stand with a little plate, have punch bowl, mingle, sort of thing, which I'm not really all that big on, personally. I'm not the most comfortable person with that. And there were a lot of people who were not from our church. I didn't know them, so it was a little awkward in some ways, I guess you could say. And I started hearing this voice back, in an adjoining room, a somewhat loud voice, that started talking about a Thanksgiving basket giveaway that had just taken place a couple weeks before. And the voice was going on and on at some length about what a really awful experience that this had been. And that they had to go down to this really scary kind of neighborhood, and that the people just didn't really seem like they appreciated the trouble that they had gone to bring them a box of food for their Thanksgiving treat. And that really just did not want to participate in this anymore. And the folks around were kind of, well, you know how those people are. You know, it's really dangerous to be even around them. And you know, those people are really not worthy of receiving help. You did the right thing. I mean, you were polite, but you know, I don't blame you for not wanting to do that. I wouldn't have done that. And I just lost my appetite. I just lost my appetite. The conversation was getting kind of more racist. It was getting kind of mean-spirited. And everybody's there with their little glass cups and their nice dishes and things, saying these things. And I just lost my appetite. And it wasn't the only thing that I kind of lost. I lost my sense of decorum, my sense of just let it slide, just go away, don't say anything. And I shared a few words of concern with the people that were circled around this person who was leading the conversation, who happened to be the governor. And told them that my experience with these folks was different than what they were talking about. And that my great hope was that people who were in power could find some ways to help permanently alleviate hunger in our community and ways to help folks bridge some of the difficulties that folks were experiencing about not being able to be employed, perhaps because of their color, to deal with the incidence of drugs that was infestating their neighborhood, and it was made it unsafe for their children to even live there. Oh, well, anyway. It didn't fall on very receptive ears, let's put it that way. And the governor's voice was getting kind of loud, and next thing I turn around and here's the hostess, and she has my coat. And I think it's time to go now. And so I was escorted from the gathering. So it's when you lose your appetite, sometimes it is being replaced by a hunger for justice. And sometimes for some of us, we need perhaps to lose our appetites perhaps a little bit more, and to hunger for justice maybe just a little bit more. Sometimes we are aiding and abetting the situation, and sometimes being polite is not necessarily the greatest sin. I think that's what Jesus was trying to enact for us. I think that's what he was trying to hold out for us. Not that we have to go make mayhem everywhere that we go. I'm not saying that. We got enough mayhem in our political sphere these days to last for a long time. But perhaps we can find a way to connect with that hunger for justice that Jesus was not going to let go and was not going to stand behind gentility and politeness in our society. Perhaps there are ways that we can do that. I would just like to connect the way I tried to connect and encourage us to think about as well. And that is that when we are hungry in the church, we do have a food. This table here is a place where we can, our hunger for justice can be fed with morsels, because they are a foretaste of the feast to come. We're fed because that promise that has that has been sealed for us by the crucifixion and death and resurrection of Jesus is that, okay, they can chase him down, they can nail him to a cross, but the promise that we will have a peaceful world has only been sealed by that. It has not been stopped by those acts of resistance or violence against others. We have that promise that is assured to us. And when we dine here with our little morsels, our little tidbits, we are participating in the realization of that kingdom to come, which is about peace, which is about reconciliation, which is no more insults, no more violence to others. It is that beautiful, beautiful promise that Jesus gave to us and gave his blood, that will happen. As we hunger for justice, as we struggle with the ways in which we can participate, not participate in that struggle, we have this food to strengthen us. If we need it more than once a week, I'm sure that will be arranged, but we have that meal. Now may God, the Father of all, give us the blessing and the joy to be able to share this promise with all those around us. In Jesus' name.